Hey people, Sleepy Reader here. Gonna do a mostly kind of quickie comic book thoughts. I have a lot of comics that I've read recently, and I just wanted to spew out some thoughts about them. I'm pretty sleepy, but before I go to bed, I just wanted to, I was on vacation, came back, grabbed a huge pile of comic books from my store. Haven't read them all. But I wanted to talk about the ones I had because it feels good to me. Earth 2 Earth 2 number 26 was a really satisfying wrap up to this long battle with Apocalypse on Earth, the leftover of the other Apocalypse battle that kicked off Earth 2 back in Earth 2 number 1. And it was a really satisfying wrapping up to things. There is stuff left over, so there can be even more future battles with Apocalypse, but it does wrap up everything that's been going on up till now. Really great art from Nicola Scott. Great continued to prove that Tom Taylor's a really excellent artist. Some of these pages are spoilers. They're beautiful, but I can't really show them to you. But, if you haven't been reading this and you can pick up the issues, I'd say do it or get the trades. I'm kind of thinking about just stopping here because from everything I see when I read Future's End and what I see about World's End, I may not want to get into the tangled future of Earth 2 that's been hinted at, and I might be happy just stopping here. Although on the other hand, it's been so great, maybe I want more greatness. Future's End, from 2 weeks worth of Future's End, 13 and 14, continued to be very good, very tight. A lot happens in each issue. Characters stay very consistent. The art's very consistent, if kind of old school and basic. So still really digging Future's End. Here's an interesting one, Night World. It's a 1 of 4, so it's just a 4-issue thingy from Image Comics. And as you may be able to tell from the cover, it has very old school, mostly Jack Kirby-ish kind of art. It's a very well done Jack Kirby take. Very nicely colored too. And the story kind of feels almost like an Edgar Allan Poe story. So it's like Edgar Allan Poe meets Jack Kirby, if you will. So I enjoyed it more than I should have in some sense, because it's kind of, Edgar Allan Poe is Edgar Allan Poe. It's hard for anyone else to do that kind of thing and pull it off. And Jack Kirby's Jack Kirby, but somehow I found this an irresistible combination. It's a $3.99 book. I don't like to get a lot of those, but it's just 4 issues, and I think I can't resist getting all the rest. So, I've never heard of this artist, Paolo Leonori, but I hope to see a lot more work by him. It's his story and his art, and it's, sort of with scripting assistance or writing assistance from a scripter. Really good, really pleasurable. I picked up another Image number 1 called Imperial, even though it had this awful cover. And I thought I was picking up a science fiction book, but this is in fact a superhero, kind of yet another deconstruction of superheroes. This time, the passing on from one superhero to another, the power, I guess. And it's fun. The odd thing about it is this main character who the hero Imperial wants to make the next Imperial is very stupid, basically. I mean, I think maybe the idea is he's just an average Joe, but they really play up his stupidity, and at times that kind of annoyed me. Like, you could make someone uneducated but still have some kind of intelligence or some other quality. It just, they overplayed his stupidity, I felt. I probably will get future issues. I was enjoying reading it. It's yeah. One theme of reading all these books sort of all at once in the past few days is all of the indies I enjoyed more than the DC books I read. I don't think I read any Marvel, but so even a superhero indie is appealing because they can just follow through and do what they want to do with their story and not have to fit into the larger picture of DC Comics or Marvel Comics. So I will probably continue to get this. Hopefully the future covers will be better, but the interior art was good. Justice League 3000 was one of the better mainstream books I read. I kind of like the reference to the old school DC books that sometimes had two stories and they would split the cover down the middle this way to show the two stories, and this is indeed split into two stories, although they're both part of the same continuing story, sort of told from different points of view. We get a woman Flash of a sort. She's a combination of two clones, the clone of the Barry Allen Flash and the clone of this woman who's been one of the twins, Terry, one of the Terrys. Anyway, it was a very fun, very well done issue. Closely behind Earth 2 as for best DC issues I read this week. Alex and Ada continues to be wonderful. It's all in the small moments, but in those small moments are twists and turns that I wasn't expecting, and these characters remain really real, and the art is really effective. If you're not on Alex and Ada and you like grown-up comic books, look for the trades. Look for the trades if you want. I don't mean to tell... You know, it's a funny thing because you get excited about something and say, oh, you should go get this. I don't mean to tell anyone to go get anything. Should be just talking about my reaction to it. My reaction to Sovereign issue 5? Yeah, issue 5 was great pleasure. It was very enjoyable. I'd been having problems with the art in this book, but it continued to be kind of ugly art, but it was very effective. The coloring struck me in a very positive way in this issue. The story was very clear. I think there was some fuzziness earlier on, and I feel like greater clarity is coming to this book. This whole issue focused on one character, which I liked, maybe rather than trying to do 3 sections per issue, one on each different character. They should switch characters between issues. That might be a good way to go. But anyway, a very cool issue both visually and storytelling wise. So I'm hoping that Sovereign, which I've been sticking with some reservations, is really going to find its groove. Baltimore, like every other issue of Baltimore, great pulp fiction done, very classy pulp fiction, you might say, with a new artist, and maybe not, quite up to Ben Steinbeck or whoever the previous artist. I'm not sure if I got his name right. This new artist is Peter Berting. I thought he does a very effective job telling the story and keeping the tone and mood right. I recognize this as the same book as when the other artist was doing it, even if it's a somewhat different art style. It's the same pacing and mood, and probably some of that, especially in terms of mood, is helped by colorist Dave Stewart, who has remained a constant on these Baltimore books also. Baltimore's always in these short runs. This is one of 3, and then a few months later they'll take a break, and a few months later another short miniseries will appear. You can pick it up at the beginning of any miniseries, as long as you can accept that you're not going to get the full backstory, but each one is a complete pulp horror adventure action story. Oh, here's one I haven't read yet. Exciting, because I want to read it. Mercenary Sea was excellent. I really liked Mercenary Sea a lot, but the last 2 issues were a little shakier for me. But this is in full form. Yes, it's a cheesy story as if it were told in the 1940s or late 30s where it takes place. And it's pulpy also, and it's fun. Characters are fun. The art is really kind of cool and unique, even though if it, kind of the same as I've been saying all along about it. But this is a very satisfying issue. So I'm really glad I've stuck with this, and this issue will keep me going. Phantom Stranger, I don't even know what to say about this. Phantom Stranger fights God in this episode, which turns out, of course, to be a battle with himself, in a sense. It's wacky, fun, but I don't know. I feel a little weird with all the God stuff in it, I have to say, but at the same time I enjoyed it. Yeah. Compared to the indie books, it's just an okay read. And even a perennial favorite of mine, Swamp Thing, was really just kind of an okay read this time. Maybe because we've seen this plot too much of someone trying to take the Avatar's power, and the Avatar somehow, Swamp Thing, somehow squeaking out of it at the last minute. Charles Soule, who's done such a great job, is making me nervous if he's just going to keep retreading. If he's not going somewhere at this point, it'll be a bit disappointing. And Terminal Hero, another new book from Dynamite that's part of their Creators Unleashed program, which is apparently not creator-owned as far as I can tell, but giving some well-known creators, in this case Peter Milligan and Piotr Kowalski, perhaps a free rein to tell a story, even though it's probably owned by Dynamite. Kowalski's art is very pleasing to me. I don't think this is like him at his very best. I saw some stuff in the comic book Sex that he draws before I stopped reading Sex, that I thought was at a higher level. But still, this is very cool stuff, and it's a unique. It's called Terminal Hero. So far, the guy's not a hero at all. It's more like terminal craziness, possibly villain. But it moves along very fast and maybe skips over some details a little too much, but it's kind of a cool examination of cancer and superpowers, if I can put it that way, but not done too heavily. So I really enjoyed it. Definitely get the next issue. The same with Devilers, the other book in this kind of Creators Unleashed series. Both of them I'll get their second issue, and if I like them as much as the first issue, I'll add them to my poll. I haven't yet had the pleasure of reading Clone or Black Science, two of my favorite books that somehow got near the bottom of my pile. Also, this, so I have the remaining books I have to read are amongst my favorites. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I was struck in reading like 15 or 16 books in a row how much more I liked the indies than the others. I talked about the Bat books that I read this week in another video, and the one I liked best was Grayson, and it was pretty good, but also even that was not as good, as satisfying, as fully itself as the indie books were. It's like you can, maybe because I read so many comic books and I'm reading about comics and listening to everyone talk about them, I feel like you can sense the editorial hand in the mix unfortunately in a corporate sense, not in just the editor as collaborator with the writer to make sure he does the very best comic, although I'm sure there's a lot of that goes on in DC and Marvel Comics. You can, in the, when you read Alex and Ada or Baltimore or Sovereign or any of these others, even Terminal Hero, you can sense that the writer and the artist and perhaps the editor who works with them are all able to just remain true to the story they need to tell and nothing more. They don't have all these other issues that they have to deal with, in a sense. Oh, another comic that I haven't read yet, I'm also looking forward to, is Rogue Trooper Classics number 4, which, yeah, it's kind of a guilty pleasure, so to speak, because I read it and I know it's not written it feels like it's written for kids, even though it's pretty violent and grim, but looking forward to reading that. Also read Tiny Titans with my daughter. I don't happen to have that here. Number 3, The Return to the Treehouse. It was excellent. It was very funny. Lots of fun to read with a kid. Anyone out there looking for a comic book to read with a young child, anywhere from 3 to 10 years old, I would guess, can't really go wrong with the Tiny Titans. And you can certainly pick up any issue. You don't have to read them in order to enjoy them. I don't know how Franco and Art Balthazar, issue after issue, when they write comics and draw them, just hit it just right. Funny, light, innocent, they just really get everything right, and it's just a joy to read. I feel like there's some other comics I've been reading with my daughter that I'd like to tell you about, but I can't think of them right now. So, I'll talk to you all later. Bye-bye.